He holds a patent on a house designed to survive a tornado, a hurricane, and a wildfire, rated R300, the highest structural resilience classification in the field. The man who filed it isn't an architect or an engineer from some corporate firm. He's Mark Bowe, a former coal miner from a small town in West Virginia who built his name pulling 200-year-old barns apart. And by the time this story is done, you'll understand exactly why those two things are not a contradiction. For the past 2 years, one question followed Barnwood builders everywhere it went. Fans noticed it first. The comment sections filled with it. Discussion threads on Reddit kept circling back to it. The show's cast had changed. 2 longtime fan favorites gone by 2021. Seasons kept arriving, but with less noise around them than before. The DIY network had become the Magnolia Network. The cultural conversation had moved on. And somewhere in that space between loyal fans and the wider internet, a rumor took hold. Barnwood Builders was on its last legs. The show that had once been the most watched program in DIY network history, drawing more than 1 million households every Sunday night, felt, to some observers, like it was quietly winding down. Season after season came and went without the kind of mainstream fanfare that had greeted the early years. The departures of Tim Rose and Alex Webb in 2021 added fuel. Rose had retired during the pandemic, with the show's own Instagram page confirming it without ceremony. Webb had left to start his own business, Webb's Joinery and Construction. 2 of the original faces, gone within months of each other. And then came the silence, long gaps between seasons. A Magnolia Network social post that read, simply, "We promise we'll be back soon, hint, hint." That kind of message doesn't come from a show in full health. It comes from a show that knows its audience is waiting for reassurance. Here's what the comments kept asking, and here's the answer they never got, until now. The reassurance, it turns out, begins long before the cameras. Mark Bowe grew up in Glasgow, West Virginia, a small community that, in November 2022, put up a welcome sign designating itself his birthplace. That's not a detail the show dwells on. But it matters. Glasgow isn't a suburb. It isn't a college town. It's rural Appalachia, the kind of place where how you spend your hands tells the world who you are. After high school, Bowe enrolled at West Virginia University. He paid for it by working underground. Coal mining, not the kind of line you put on a resume as a quirky detail. Actual extraction work, shift work, physical labor. He earned his bachelor's in business administration that way, and then kept going, completing a master's in safety management from the same institution. 2 degrees from WVU, funded by the mines. In 2024, that same university inducted him into the John Chambers College of Business and Economics Roll of Distinguished Alumni. In 1995, a year before his business officially launched, Bowe began buying and salvaging antique cabins and barns. By 1996, he had a company, Antique Cabins and Barns. It was not a media company. It was not a brand. It was a crew of West Virginians doing physical work, carefully dismantling structures that had stood for 200 years, preserving the timber, and giving it new life in new buildings. Over the next 2 decades, that crew reclaimed more than 500 pioneer-era structures. The television came later, and the way it came is the part most people don't know. The DIY network didn't discover Mark Bowe at a trade show. They didn't pull him from a casting call. Someone brought them a pilot, a concept built directly around his existing business, Antique Cabins and Barns, and the crew of people he was already working with. The network was interested. They developed it. And in November 2013, Barnwood Builders premiered on DIY Network. No manufactured drama, no hired cast. The same crew Mark had been working with for years, doing the same work they had always done, with a camera along for the ride. What happened next surprised the network. Barnwood Builders didn't just perform, it became the most watched show in DIY network history. Over 1 million households tuning in every Sunday. The show ran on an audience that responded to something it wasn't getting elsewhere. People who were genuinely good at something, doing that thing without pretense, in landscapes that look like America actually looks rather than America as it appears in catalogs. The DIY network eventually became the Magnolia Network, Chip and Joanna Gaines' rebranded channel. Barnwood Builders moved with it. The show also landed on Max, the streaming platform that carries HBO and serves more than 97 million subscribers worldwide. A program about men with chainsaws and hand tools in West Virginia, sitting in the same library as prestige television. By season 19, the crew had worked across multiple states. The episode count was approaching 200. But here's the part that changes everything about what you just heard. The television revenue gave Mark Bowe something he described clearly in an interview with Greenbrier Valley Quarterly: room to take risks without the threat of collapse. He knew what collapse felt like. In 2008, when the housing bubble burst, the business took a hit. He adapted. He sold an insurance agency he had acquired. He restructured. He kept moving. The coal miner mentality, survive what's underground, then find the exit, had apparently become permanent. In 2016, while Barnwood Builders was in full production, Bowe expanded his operation into what became Barnwood Living. Not just a construction business anymore, a lifestyle brand. Hardwood flooring, men's gifts, apparel, home goods. He franchised Barnwood Living into Texas. The show was a platform, a weekly advertisement for a set of values and an aesthetic that translated directly into consumer spending. Then he went further. He partnered with AHF Products on a flooring collection, the Barnwood Living line, comprising 15 hardwood designs inspired by the visual character of West Virginia's county-specific wood grain. Both solid and engineered options, manufactured in the United States, Somerset, Kentucky, and Beverly, West Virginia. The collection launched alongside Barnwood Village. Barnwood Village, that is the project that signals how large the ambition actually is. 3 vacation rental cabins, built by the Barnwood Builders crew in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. The Spa City Cottage, the Big Draft Timber Frame, and the Dry Creek Cabin. Each one built to demonstrate what Barnwood Living construction actually looks like when fully realized. Not a barn being pulled down for television, but a finished, bookable space featuring hand-selected reclaimed timber, modern amenities, and the flooring line installed throughout. Guests could stay in a Mark Bowe build the same year they watched him on Magnolia Network. Most people who know this story stop here, but the real story starts right now. Mark Bowe has spent his career going backward to find the way forward. That's his own framing, and it's not a slogan, it's a method. Every structure he pulls apart teaches him something about how the original builders solved the same problems: load distribution, weather resistance, material longevity, that modern construction still struggles with. The timber in a 200-year-old cabin isn't just old, it's proof. It held because it worked. That philosophy led him somewhere unexpected. Bowe holds a patent on an R300 rated house design. R300 is the highest classification in structural resilience testing, a standard that addresses survivability against tornadic winds, hurricane-force weather, and wildfire. He didn't stop there. He invented a folding house, a modular, deployable structure that can be transported and assembled in disaster zones. He repurposed a shipping container as a functional log cabin. These aren't concepts sketched on a whiteboard by someone with a design degree. They came from a man who has handled timber from the 1700s and asked the same question every time: why did this one survive? The patent came from that question. The folding house came from that question. The Greenbrier Valley Quarterly reported, in an early profile, that Bowe and 2 partners had a patent pending for a housing concept specifically designed for disaster areas. Affordable, rapidly deployable, built to resist what standard construction cannot. What Bowe confirmed is that he had always seen the show as part of something larger. The cabins were not the product. The knowledge embedded in those cabins was the product. And if you think that was surprising, stay with me, because this next part is why the whole story matters. The crew changes that shook the fan community deserve an honest look. Tim Rose joined the Barnwood Builders team in 2006, 7 years before the show even existed. He was there before the cameras, doing the work before it had an audience. By the time Barnwood Builders became a national program, Rose was already one of its most recognizable personalities, the Air Force aircraft mechanic turned builder, known for his humor, his outdoors competence, and his ability to handle whatever wildlife turned up on a job site. Fans called him the Animal Whisperer. In 2021, Rose retired. The show's Instagram confirmed it during the pandemic, framing it simply: he had decided to step away and focus on his family. No drama attached, no public dispute. He was not fired. No specific conflict has ever been confirmed. He stepped back, and the show went on. Alex Webb's departure the same year was different in character but similar in consequence. Webb had joined in 2016, left a railroad career to email Mark Bowe out of nowhere asking for a job, and received an answer within minutes. By 2021, he was ready to apply what the job had taught him. He took to Facebook directly, thanked the fans, and announced the launch of Webb's Joinery and Construction, specializing in historic restoration and custom wood construction. A genuine career growth story. 2 people leaving, each for their own reasons, in the same compressed window, a pandemic year when the entire country was reassessing how it wanted to spend its time. The audience read it as a symptom. It was more likely a coincidence of timing. The crew filming season 19 in 2024 still included Sherman Thompson, Johnny Jett, and Graham Ferguson, three men who have been in this since the early years. The show did not fall apart. It kept building. One phone call, one conversation. That's all it took to change the direction of everything. Here is what the online conversation got wrong, and here is what it got right. It got wrong that the cast changes and the quieter seasons meant Barnwood Builders was dying. Season 19 aired across 2024 on Magnolia Network and streaming on Max. The Barnwood Builders social accounts, as recently as 2025, posted directly to the audience with a message that more was coming. Mark Bowe, in September 2025, stood on a stage at the Robinson Grand Performing Arts Center in Clarksburg, West Virginia. Tickets from $17, a sold-out evening, and talked for hours about the show, the craft, and the life behind both. That is not what a canceled program looks like. It got right that Barnwood Builders was always a platform for something bigger than television. The fans who said Mark Bowe was building towards something were correct. They just didn't know how far along that build was. The Barnwood Village is operating. The flooring line is in production in the United States. The Texas franchise is running. The disaster-proof housing patent is filed. The folding house exists. In 2024, West Virginia University formally acknowledged it. The former coal miner who built a global brand out of salvaged timber, inducted into the role of distinguished alumni. Mark Bowe himself said it plainly in the same Greenbrier Valley interview. The show provides income so he can explore new ideas without risk of collapse. That's the line that clarifies everything. He built Barnwood Builders into something stable enough to underwrite the next experiment, and then the next one after that. The rumor that confirmed itself is the quietest one, that the man on screen tearing down old barns has always been building something you couldn't see on camera. Mark Bowe's story is a single argument repeated in every medium available to him. Coal mines, timber frames, television cameras, patent filings, vacation rentals, and a stage in Clarksburg, West Virginia. The argument is that the past doesn't belong in a museum. It belongs in your floor, in your walls, in a structure tough enough to survive the next disaster. Barnwood Builders is heading into what appears to be its 20th season, still on Magnolia Network and Max, still with its core crew. The Barnwood Village is bookable tonight. The folding house patent is sitting in a filing cabinet somewhere, waiting for the moment it becomes the thing everyone needs. The rumors that the show was fading were wrong. The rumor that this was always about more than a show turned out to be the most accurate thing anyone said. So here's the question worth putting in the comments. Do you think Mark Bowe should step back from television and push the disaster-proof housing technology full-time, or does the show still matter enough to keep going?